So the Fender Jazzmaster is an iconic guitar. It's not quite as popular as the Strat or the Tele, but thanks to the indie and grunge artists of the 80s, 90s, and 2000s who brought these guitars back into the public eye, they're now seen as kind of a staple guitar. They're unique, both in shape and in sound. And in today's video, we're gonna be looking at 5 different levels of Jazzmaster for 5 different budgets. And I'm gonna tell you which I think is the best all-around Jazzmaster for your money. Before we get into it though, I wanna quickly thank the sponsor of today's video, which is Sweetwater. I went over to sweetwater.com and handpicked each one of these guitars for this shootout. And if you want more information on each one of these guitars, check the links in the description box below. Those are Sweetwater affiliate links, which means if you buy anything through that link, I earn a small commission. Doesn't cost you any extra, and it goes a long way in helping me keep the channel going. Also, still, according to my analytics, over half of the people that watch this channel on a regular basis are not subscribed, and it really does help the channel out when you click that little red subscribe button. So, thanks to Sweetwater for sponsoring today's video, and with all that out of the way, let's hear these 5 Jazzmasters. Mid to late 1950s, jazz guitar was dominated by big arch tops and hollow bodies, primarily made by companies like Gibson and D'Angelico. And Leo Fender and Company at Fender in Southern California wanted a piece of that market, so they ended up designing and releasing the Jazzmaster. Now, the earliest prototypes would have come around in 1957 with its official release in 1958. And the initial release was met with mixed results. It didn't really ever catch on as a jazz guitar as Leo had intended it. Now, my friend Keith over at 5 Watt World has an excellent video on the history of the Jazzmaster. I've got it linked below if you want to know everything there is to know about the Jazzmaster and how it came about. But while it didn't get adopted by the jazz players that it was intended for, it was adopted early on by bands like the Ventures and other surf bands, as well as Lou Perkins of Johnny Cash's band and a number of other players who would go on to make the Jazzmaster somewhat popular. And while it did gain some popularity with those players, it never really competed with the Telecaster or the Stratocaster in terms of popularity. But it's an amazing guitar nonetheless. It actually shares very little with other Fenders of the time. Basically everything about this guitar, with the exception of the neck shape and design, is unique to the Jazzmaster itself. The body shape is incredibly ergonomic. It feels amazing to play sitting down. It's very well balanced. It doesn't neck dive. It doesn't heel dive. The body contours and cutouts make it really comfortable and ergonomic to play. It's bigger than a Stratocaster or a Telecaster, so it sits a little higher on your lap, which I really like. And then you have the interesting tremolo system, which is unique to the Jazzmaster and now Jazzmaster style guitars like my Novo Ceres J. It's a little more subtle. You don't have as much control or as much range as you do in like a Stratocaster tremolo, for example, but it allows for a more sort of mellow tremolo sound when you're actually using it. And then there's the pickups and the rhythm circuit. Now, Jazzmaster pickups are really interesting. A lot of people will confuse it and say that these are just P90s, but they're not. They're Jazzmaster pickups. They are their own thing. They're a wide range single coil pickup. Wide range meaning the coils are actually a little wider than they are typically on a Stratocaster or Telecaster guitar. And Leo's original intention behind that design was to give the guitar a little warmer tone, as he put it. He thought that having a wider range, picking up a wider area of the string, would give the guitar a warmer tone, and it does to an extent. But I actually think that the Jazzmaster sound, the Jazzmaster pickups, are known for their fidelity. These pickups sound big and clear and bell-like. And while they are single coils, they don't sound like a Telecaster or a Stratocaster. They are their own thing, which is something I'm actually growing to love about this guitar design. there is the rhythm circuit. Now, the idea behind the rhythm circuit was that a jazz guitarist of the time would be able to quickly switch between a lead sound on the bridge position immediately to the rhythm sound, or that was the idea. So what happens is when you flip the switch up, it isolates the neck pickup. You only hear the neck pickup no matter where this three-way toggle is down here. And it bypasses the volume and tone control down here in favor of a volume and tone roller up here. And the tone shifts slightly. It's a little darker. Even when the tone control is rolled all the way up, it's a little darker, a little more mellow. And you can make this very, very dark and very mellow on the rhythm circuit. Jazzmasters in the past, I have messed around with the rhythm circuit and haven't really found much use for it. You can have a completely different, darker, more mellow sound dialed in up here and immediately switch to it if you so choose. It's kind of an interesting design. Okay, so the first guitar in our lineup is the Squier Classic Vibe 60s Jazzmaster, coming in at $429 US at the time of filming this video. Now, for under $500, this guitar punches well above its weight class, which is kind of par for the course with Squier. All the Squier stuff that we've tested in this series, the 5 levels of series, has been pretty great, and this guitar is no exception. It's not perfect, it does have a few drawbacks, but the good stuff is it sounds great. It plays really well. It came out of the box set up. I mean, the action is super good. The intonation is there. It stays in tune. But if this were my guitar, I would change a few things. First of all, these pickups. These are my least favorite pickups out of the whole lineup. But that's an easy swap, especially with these Jazzmasters. I mean, they're top mounted here on the pickguard. You can get into this guitar and swap pickups really, really easily. But the other thing is a little bit more difficult, and that is the Jazzmaster tremolo system. Now, if you've ever played a Jazzmaster, you know that the tremolos are pretty sensitive, and it's a completely different feeling tremolo than a Strat, for example. And I think you can really tell the difference in the levels of quality when it comes to the tremolo feel and the throw. And this one doesn't feel great. It's kind of sloppy. There's a lot of give to it, and it does rattle a little bit. Like, I don't know if you can hear that, but... Now, part of that is a Jazzmaster thing. Because the breakover angle of the string on the bridge is so shallow there, you do get a lot of sympathetic resonance behind the bridge. A lot of people will put, rubber grommets or something behind the strings to deaden that. I think it's kind of cool. I think it's part of the Jazzmaster sound. I like it. But if this were my guitar, I would think pretty heavily about changing this tremolo out for a nicer, more stable unit. And when you add to that, swapping the pickups out, maybe the electronics, you're easily doubling, maybe even tripling the price of this guitar, which is questionable. But out of the box, for under $500, it's pretty good. Coming in at number 2 on our shootout today is the Vintera II 50s Jazzmaster. This is coming in at $1,249 US, and this is quite a bit different in some ways than the Squier, but in some ways it feels shockingly similar, which is kind of a testament to the Squier, actually. So we are getting better pickups. These pickups to me sound much better and much more in line with like the traditional Jazzmaster sound that I'm used to hearing over the Squier. So better pickups. You are getting a better tremolo system as well. You're getting the more traditional Fender Jazzmaster tremolo with the lockout here and everything. Although I will say this one is buzzing as well. Now, I'm not exactly sure what that is. I think it's something in the actual tremolo. You could probably pull the strings off and get in there and figure it out. It might be something that happened in shipping. I'm not really sure. But you're getting this desert sand finish with the gold anodized garb, which I think is a really cool look. And the rosewood fretboard, which is really nice. This is a good guitar. Made in Mexico. It is a little heavy. And because it's a 50 spec, it's got a little bit beefier neck on it. It's the 50 C-shaped neck, which I really dig. No skunk stripe on the back, which is period correct for a late 50s Jazzmaster. You could upgrade the bridge itself to like a mastery bridge, which I think is a worthy upgrade for almost every Jazzmaster out there. They're really, really nice, well made. They transfer the vibrations really well into the guitar. They're compensated saddles. Out of the box, this is a cool vintage style Jazzmaster. Okay, so coming in at number 3 on our lineup is the American Pro II. This is $1899 at the time of filming this, and this is kind of an interesting guitar because it sits right in the middle in terms of style. It's not exactly a vintage recreation like the Vintera II or the Squier, and it's not as modern as the guitar we're about to look at. It's got some interesting features. The contoured heel here on the back of the neck. It's got the V-Mod 2 pickups, which are a more modern sounding pickup. They're a little cleaner, a little less character to them, in my opinion, a little more hi-fi. And then it has this interesting system here for the bridge pickup. The tone pot is a push pot here. When it's down, it's basically just revoicing the pickup. It's not a coil split or a coil tap because these are single coil pickups. They're not humbuckers. So basically what this is doing is when it's down, Fender says it's a more throaty, mid-rangey sound. And when it's up, it's a kind of cleaner, more vintage sound. I prefer it up, which to me means if this were my guitar, I would gut this system and just put a regular volume and tone control in here. And I might swap these pickups out as well for something a little bit more vintage voice. But you're getting the same tremolo system as on the Vintera. It's the Panorama tremolo. And this one also has a bit of that buzz going on. So I'm wondering if that's just inherent to the design of that tremolo system. Overall, though, it's a classic looking Jazzmaster, the sunburst with the tort guard and the parchment plastics with a few modern features if you're into that kind of thing. You got some interesting tonal options. When you combine that bridge pickup voicing with the rhythm circuit, you can actually cover quite a bit of ground with this thing, which I think is part of the character of the Jazzmaster overall. They're incredibly versatile guitars that can do a lot of different stuff, and this is a modern take on that. Okay, this is the most modern guitar in our lineup today. This is the American Ultra coming in at $22.99 US. And this guitar is kind of interesting because it's got some ultra modern features, but there's a few kind of vintage sounds hidden in it. So you're getting noiseless Jazzmaster pickups here. You're getting a contoured heel that's different than the contour on the American Pro II. Some extra cutouts, more modern finish, locking tuners, a bound fretboard, which is kind of an homage to the vintage, the late 50s Jazzmasters of the time. But what's really interesting about this is the switching system. So they've got the S1 switch here on the volume pot. And that'll do a couple of things. That'll let you combine the pickups in different ways. But when the S1 switch is engaged and you flip on the rhythm circuit, it's actually not a traditional rhythm circuit. It puts the two pickups out of phase. So you get this quacky, vintage, out of phase tone. So it's interesting to me that you have this super modern take on a classic guitar with a really vintage sound hidden inside the wiring. It's pretty cool. Okay, last but certainly not least in our lineup is the Fender Custom Shop 59 Journeyman Relic in Dakota Red, coming in at $5,900 US. It's a great guitar. It sounds great, it plays great, it looks great, but it's expensive. Ironically enough, it shares the most in common with the second least expensive guitar in the lineup, which is the Vintera. There's not really any fancy bells and whistles going on here in terms of the switching system or, hidden tones and the pots or anything like that. It's just straight up classic vintage Jazzmaster for a vintage Jazzmaster price. Now, there's a couple cool things going on here. All of these guitars, I think, sound quite a bit different. And that's kind of interesting with this particular lineup, but we'll get to that in a moment. I like the sound of this one the best, and I think that's down to a couple of things. First of all, the pickups. These custom shop pickups sound great, but also this bridge has the brass saddles on here. And I'm a huge fan of brass on my Telecasters. Anytime I have a Telecaster, the first thing I do is swap the saddles out for brass saddles. It really does make a difference in the low end response and the resonance of the guitar. If you don't believe me, try it for yourself. And this is also the best feeling tremolo of the whole bunch. So if you're looking for a custom shop, this is a beautiful option. It's pricey, but yeah, if you're in that market, it's a really cool, good looking, great playing Jazzmaster. So traditionally when I've done these shootout videos, it's been pretty easy for me to rank the guitars based off of what I like and what I don't like, what I would recommend from my perspective. But with the Jazzmaster shootout, it's a little bit more difficult because each one of these guitars is so different. Yes, they're all Jazzmasters with Jazzmaster pickups, but they sound different. They feel different. They have different features, and they're for 5 completely different players. So with what I'm about to say, keep in mind, take it with a grain of salt. This is my personal ranking based off of my perspective and what I look for in a guitar like this. So with that said, coming in at number 5, the lowest ranking is going to be the American Ultra. This is not a bad guitar, but for me, it's too expensive. I don't love the look. I don't like the modern features, and I would end up paying for a lot of things that I just wouldn't use. The S1 switching system is not for me. The out of phase thing is cool, but I would go about routing an out of phase system in a guitar like this in a different way. It's kind of confusing. It's a little heavy, honestly. Things like, the locking tuners and the sparkle metallic paint just don't really hit home for me. And at its price point compared to the other guitars in the lineup, I just can't recommend it. Now, if you're looking for something like this that's super modern and has all the different features and the bells and whistles, then this is your guitar. But for me, it's just not it. Now, number 4 is going to be the American Pro II for a few of the same reasons as the American Ultra. I like this guitar a little better. I like the price better, and it's a little closer to what I look for in a guitar like this. It's more vintage feeling. It's got a more vintage look. But I don't like the electronic system, and I don't love the pickups. So for me, if I kept this guitar, I'd end up swapping basically all of the electronics out, which gets pretty pricey. And when you're spending this kind of money on a guitar, to add another $300, $400, $500 maybe, depending on what pickups and wiring system you go with on top of that, it starts to get up there. So it's a cool guitar. I like the sound. It plays really well. It's got a great look. But for the reasons of having to swap out all the electronics and get it up to my spec, that's why it's not making the top 3. So number 3 is the custom shop. Now, this might surprise some of you. I have a few custom shop guitars. The custom shop Telly from my Telly shootout, I actually ended up keeping, and I adore that guitar. And I really, really like this Jazzmaster. In fact, based on sound alone, I like this one the best out of the whole lineup. It sounds incredible. And that's down to these pickups and this bridge. I really love these custom shop Jazzmaster pickups, and I really love the brass saddles on this bridge. But the thing about it is, you can put these pickups in this bridge on just about any of the guitars in this lineup and get them much closer to what this guitar is. And at almost $6,000, we're really into the law of diminishing returns here, which is the case for most custom shop guitars. You're paying a lot more money for minimal differences in feel and sound and tone. They are there. This guitar feels incredible. It's amazingly well built. It looks amazing. It sounds amazing, but it's a lot of money. With that said, though, if you're interested in a custom shop Jazzmaster and you've got the money to spend and you want something like this Dakota Red model is really great. It's the lightest guitar of the bunch. It resonates super well. It plays super well. It sounds amazing. It just doesn't make the top two of the lineup just because of the price. It's so hard to recommend someone spend $6,000 on a guitar like this when there's other really great options for way less than half the price. So for the top two, again, this was a difficult decision for me, but number 2 is going to be the Squier Classic Vibe. For under $500, this guitar is hard to beat. And like I said earlier in the video, that's kind of par for the course with Squier in general. They're building really great feeling and playing guitars for an affordable price. And yes, it needs some work. Definitely needs pickups. In fact, if I were keeping this guitar, I would just redo all of the electronics. But even then, these guitars are so modular. If you keep all the stock parts and you decide you want to sell it on in a few years, just put it back to stock and throw it up online and, take a couple $100 for it. If you really wanted to, you could probably part out the extra parts that you bought and get most of your money back out of it that way. Now, it's not perfect. It has a few issues. I hate the look of the fingerboard. It looks super dry. It's almost gray. But again, you can fix that. The feel of the tremolo system doesn't feel great. But again, you can swap that out. And I think this makes a lot of sense for a guitar like a Jazzmaster because it's kind of a unique sounding guitar, a unique shape. For many people, this is not going to be their primary guitar. This might be your second or third guitar. And if you're looking for something to mod and have fun with, a Squier Jazzmaster is a really, really good place to start. If you can get over the fact that it says Squier on the headstock for under $500, this thing rips. So that leaves the Vintera II series at number 1. For me, this guitar is kind of right in the Goldilocks zone. It's got the vintage voice and the feel that I want with none of the weird modern bells and whistles that I don't want. It's got a great look. It sounds great. It came set up really well out of the box. And the issues that it does have, like the buzzing tremolo, I think can be fixed pretty easily. The Vintera II series, to me, I really like in all of the guitars because it kind of fits in that Goldilocks zone of well-made, at a pretty decent price. This is made in Mexico, so it's a little bit less expensive than the American-made versions, but they're using all the same parts and everything that you'd find on the American-made counterparts. And this is a really great platform for modifying, swapping the pickups out, maybe putting a mastery bridge on it, or the custom shop bridge with the brass saddles. A few upgrades here and there would go a really long way with this guitar, and I'd feel good about putting the money into it. So for that reason, the Vintera II Jazzmaster is my pick for number 1. So how would you rank these 5 Jazzmasters? Let me know in the comments section down below. Don't forget, while you're down there, please subscribe. Helps the channel out. And if you're interested in picking up any of these guitars, I'll have the Sweetwater affiliate links in the description box down below. It doesn't cost you any extra, and I earn a small commission, which helps me keep this channel going, so thank you. And on that note, thank you to Sweetwater for sponsoring this video. They sent these guitars out to me super quick. They all showed up in great shape, set up, ready to go, which has been my experience getting guitars from Sweetwater over the last several years. So if you want to find out more about these guitars that I'm using in the video, links are down below. And there's a whole series, there's a whole playlist of these 5 levels of shootout videos. If you like this video, check out the rest. And yeah, my name is Rachel. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one.